OK, well, we are back. We got the rest of those questions from Kemi Badenoch. She was pretty much on fire again after another feisty week she had last week as well. She says the Prime Minister only cares about one person's job, his own. I have to say, coming to you first, Peter Cardwell, that I did think that, she won that one. He seemed to be very much on the back foot when it was all about basically, the OBR head resigning, but the Chancellor still in her job, and then sort of teasing about the Chancellor's CV claims. Now, even the chess claims, we'll come back to all of that. But basically also everything he's saying about getting children out of poverty, that didn't count last year. Explain the background to that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. There were quite a number of Labour MPs who lost the whip, who had the whip withdrawn. They remained within the Labour Party, but not within the Labour Parliamentary Party, because they rebelled over these issues. And then they
voted for a measure.
Yes.
To actually bring in exactly what they did in the budget.
Yes.
But they were punished for it because it wasn't Labour Party policy.
Exactly correct. Now they're back in the fold.
It's a fair point from Kemi Badenoch. You feel really strongly. He said this is a moral, political and personal mission. He said, but it wasn't a year ago.
He said, I profoundly believe that every child should have a chance in life. Show me the person who doesn't believe that a child should have a chance in life. No, those children, they don't deserve a chance in life. Yeah. This was Keir Starmer on the back foot. Kemi Badenoch, the most relaxed I've ever seen her at Prime Minister's question. She knows she has the upper hand in this forum anyway, because this budget has fallen apart at every step. Absolutely. We've got an OBR leader who is gone. We've got a Chancellor in the ropes.
Absolutely. The Chancellor was sitting there in the room. She was sitting right behind him, along with David Lammy as well. Claire Pearsall, what did you make?
Well, I thought that was the most animated and relaxed I think I've seen of Kemi Badenoch in a long time. She actually seemed as if she had got used to doing this. She has managed to be able to land a punch onto Keir Starmer, and he now just looks rattled every time she speaks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, you never know with Rachel. Was she going to cry? Is she going to cry? There was that wonderful dig there about, when she quoted her cabinet ministers, criticising the budget all falling apart. And she goes, well, was it him? Yeah. Was it her? It was probably her.
Absolutely brilliant.
But also, I thought that was, brutal. She's been attacked for being brutal. Sorry, just because it's a woman.
That's the point.
Just because it's a woman making criticism of another woman. I mean, so this idea you can't criticise women. God, they should see my Twitter feed. Good grief. But anyway, but she says, no one believes a word that the Chancellor says. She said, her book was fake. Yeah. This is a book she wrote, which was basically massively plagiarised. Her CV was fake. We know all of these claims about what she did, when she was, how long she was at the Bank of England, what her actual job was. Rachel from accounts, working at HBOS, but also her chess prodigy claims. That's a new story this morning. We've heard it before. She was a junior chess champion, but big question today.
There is a big question over that, and people are now digging into the details, looking at all these sort of chess leagues, if that's what you call them. I'm not very up on this.
No, according to Professor Alex Edmonds, who competed a year below Miss Reeves, he pointed out that in the 1993 British Championship, that actually Emily Howard was the girls' champion, not Rachel Reeves. So she wasn't a chess champion, but that she'd finished 26th out of 34, which is very impressive.
Yes,
but she was definitely good at chess. But she raised the whole issue again herself with that photograph, didn't she? Just put out on budget day of her working with the chessboard next to her.
And I'm not sure what this obsession is. Does she think it makes her look normal? Look at me, I play a board game.
No, it makes me look... No, playing Monopoly makes you look normal.
Do you love Monopoly?
I love Monopoly. But playing chess, I'm sorry, let's face it, to most of us, yes, I can play chess, but not very well. But it makes you look like a spod. It isn't. I'm not saying, but for a lot of people, it just looks... Her idea is like, oh, look, I look like a really clever nerd. That's what she thinks.
Yeah, I think she wanted to try sort of the Queen's Gambit, which was a great pose. She wanted to take some of that kind of panache. And she hasn't got it.
But doesn't it say an awful lot that we're debating about whether she was the British girls under 14 champion or not? Yes. I mean, there's so many things that she just hasn't told the truth about, including aspects of the budget, including whether there was a black hole or not, and her CV and the rest of it.
All right. Thanks for bringing us back to the serious topic of the day. We were just trying to have a bit of a laugh, Peter.
Well, I feel I'm just a pawn in this discussion.
Oh,
you're the Queen.
Sorry.
Oh, here we go.
What does that make you?
I hate to be careful. Very careful.
But look, the thing is, it was that first question really set the tone, didn't it, Peter? Because, basically when an organisation descends into total shambles, as the Office for Budget Responsibility did, and Kemi was actually wrong when she said, the reason why, this guy, the boss of the ABR, was forced out for telling the truth. No, he didn't get the backing of the Chancellor because, well, you screwed me because you guys have revealed that you told me something completely different from what I told the public on November the 4th. But no, he had to go because the independent report into what happened when the budget was put out 45 minutes before Rachel Reeves even started speaking, so best part of 2 hours before it was supposed to go out, that was because we all laughed on the day, didn't we? Thought, oh well, someone just pressed send by accident. No, it was sitting there all morning, pretty much un-cyber protected, no proper passport. People had been guessing. It had happened before, but it hadn't been a big deal. No one had noticed. And this guy who's running this organisation, we don't have an IT department. And it was part of his job, not just to crunch numbers, but also to make sure that those numbers were not made public until the moment they were made public because of the massive financial and market reaction to those. Of course he had to go. It's got sod all to do with what he did or did not say about Rachel Reeves.
We had the bizarre spectacle last week of the Chancellor of the Exchequer during Prime Minister's questions on her phone, receiving messages and looking at a website where essentially her own budget was revealed. It was absolutely
Well, it was Torsten
absurd.
Bell's phone that she was handed.
Right.
Like, oops. But this is the thing. The shambles continues. The boss of the ABR has resigned. He had no choice, but you could say honourable. OK. There's now question marks about the Treasury Permanent Secretary, who the most senior civil servant, who apparently gave the say, gave the tick, yes, you can, to the ABR. You can publish this document, which basically proves, not suggests, proves that the Chancellor lied to the public on November the 4th with that early morning press conference, setting the scene for, look, we've got this big black hole. Realistically, there's going to have to be, along with briefings as well, there's going to have to be tax rises, which would breach our manifesto commitments. That then didn't happen. They claimed that, the financial situation had changed. It hadn't. That's all a lie. Is he now implicated in this? But in which case, isn't he undermining his own boss?
Yes, he is. This is James Bowler, the Permanent Secretary, most senior civil servant at the Treasury.
Is any good, or is he one of the usual suspects?
No, he's okay, actually, and I think he's the one telling the truth here. He's the one putting the facts, or at least attempting to put some of the facts in the public domain. And as we're seeing, as Kemi Badenoch deftly, I think, I'm not always the person who's mostly in praise of her, but actually she said, who briefed this? Was it her? Well, don't know. Yeah. And that's actually what Keir Starmer's thinking. And Rachel Reeves as well. They're fighting like rats in a sack because this was an absolute shambles. And you've got people like James Bowler, the Permanent Secretary, telling the truth, putting the truth in the public domain, and the public are being taken for fools. Kemi Badenoch knows that. Rachel Reeves knows that. We all know that.
Absolutely. Let's come back also to, by the way, there's lots of talk that it might be Ed Miliband who's briefing, because he's seen those polls of Labour Party
He
members.
wants to be leader of the Labour Party.
And astonishingly, Ed Miliband would be the most popular
bacon
choice.
sandwich wielding silent assassin.
I mean, genuinely, I'm telling you, as I've said last week, it would be fun for a couple of weeks.
If Ed Miliband is Prime Minister, we can all laugh for a while and then go home.
They said the markets would explode. I mean, it would damage us for a whole generation, but, worth it for the giggles, eh? Or Angela Rayner. But here's the thing. Whoever, if the Chancellor did actually have to fall on her sword or got sacked, forced out, it would be a more left-wing Chancellor. It wouldn't be a saner Chancellor. It would be a more left-wing Chancellor, someone who could spend more on benefits, for goodness sake. If we got rid of Keir Starmer, it would be a more left-wing Labour leader. I mean, that's where the party is. That's the reality.
And as every Prime Minister has found out who gets rid of or loses their Chancellor, Margaret Thatcher with Lawson, John Major.
Beginning of the end.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
There's Liz Truss more recently with Kwasi Kwarteng, because they're so completely linked to the Prime Minister.
Let's go back to that conversation we were saying about, which party is in favour of child poverty. But Kemi Badenoch said, look, you can't if you make the country poorer and you destroy jobs, that's not how you tackle child poverty. Again and again, Claire, this back me up on this. It's absolutely technical time. Does my head in when everybody says the majority of these people who are claiming benefits, whether it's the child benefit cap, they're going to get an extra £3,500 per child that they've had over two, which most families, all they who work can afford. We're told they are working families. They're not. They're not. Half of them are single parents, but there's no reason because you're a single parent that you can't work. Most single parents do work.
I was one.
You work. You're a single parent. You've always worked. Okay. The other half are two-parent families, and again, a lot of those two-parent families are actually of immigrant heritage. It's worth noting. It's a cultural decision. They want, it's Bangladeshi, Pakistani families largely, and Black African, West African countries, not Afro-Caribbean so much more, but West African. These are cultural differences, and people are entitled to have as many children as they like, as long as they're not expecting other people to pay for them. But we're constantly told they're working. Only in a tiny minority of those households are two parents working. And in lots of the cases, the people who are working part-time. This nonsense that most of these people on universal credit or most of these people claiming these benefits are working is absolutely not true.
No, it isn't. And this is the battle that you always have with the Labour Party when you start talking about benefits. Back in the day, when I was growing up, friends' parents one of them used to go out to work in the day, and then the other, normally the mother, used to go and do a night shift to earn the money. They had to tag team because it was the only way forward. People these days now know that they're going to be given practically everything. And the Labour government, when my son was born, were absolutely willing to throw money at me to stay at home rather than go back to work when I was a single parent to a small baby.
Yeah,
I didn't.
But
I
also,
went back to work.
women allowed, you would stay at home for the first 5 years. It's like, but every woman who's got a job is like, they're back at work within, mostly within a year. But here's the thing: it's this idea that you're so unique is much harder. No, I'm sorry. We're all of our husbands doing the pick up from school. Give me a break. What planet are these people living in? But Peter, I mean, this is the thing. A lot of the debate people have about benefits, about a lot of these issues, they're not actually based on actual facts. People don't actually. When I give these facts, people go, "Where'd you get that from?" Well, the official statistics, which are given out by the government. The governments know these statistics, and they just spout this nonsense.
And people see it. People see it in their daily lives, and it's our viewers.
Which is why they're in favour of keeping the caps.
Exactly, which is, it's our viewers and listeners who are going out to work, most of them, who are in the businesses that are the backbone of this country. The 99% of businesses that are employ 7 people or fewer, the SMEs, the plasters, the plumbers, the labourers, the hairdressers, the people who stand on their feet and keep this country moving.
Work through lockdown
and pay the taxes that pay for these benefits. It is not about saying to people who are genuinely disabled, you shouldn't be given benefits.
We want them to be given more.
Exactly, and we want it to be taken away from people who can work. And so many people have been mollycoddled for so long, and simply for having a child doesn't necessarily mean.
I tell you what, we've been talking a lot about, and we're going to get some calls on there in a few moments about the threat from Vladimir Putin. And other countries looking at national service. We're going to have conscription in a few years' time. I'm sorry, reality check everybody about that threat from Putin. I say if you're on benefits, you're first up. That might motivate you to get a job, eh? Let's also ask you about, Peter, about reform and the Tories, because apparently donors who've been talking to Reform leader Nigel Farage have been told by him, they claim, don't worry, we'll do a deal with the Tories before the next election and it'll be a joint Tory reform government. He's said this isn't true. The Tories have said this isn't true. He's always said publicly, I want to destroy the Tories. I hate those people. Sorry, Claire, sitting in the studio. The reality is they can't do a deal before the election because that would scupper votes on both sides, wouldn't it?
Well, I think there's a lot of unease within a lot of Reform people I talk to about the Reform brand being diluted by a lot of Tories going over there. Jonathan Gullis, the latest one. Nadine Dorries did not go down well.
Jake
at
Berry.
Reform. Yeah, did not go down well.
I would say Jonathan Gullis is actually a classic Reform. But I would say he's far more Reform than Tory.
But this reporting by the Financial Times was hosed down by Nigel Farage, saying, like, some of these donors just hear what they want to hear and then they tell journalists about it. But I think we've got the more fundamental question we've got to ask is what's in it for Reform UK? If they're riding high in the polls and they could in theory be a majority government, why would they shackle themselves to the Conservatives? I can see what's in it for the Conservatives. I can't see what's in it to Reform until after the election. Then they may form some sort of coalition or some sort of confidence supply agreement.
They would 100% do it. When we're talking like in 2010, no one was going to go into coalition. They would absolutely have done it. And everyone said after the 2015 election before then, though, they would absolutely not go into coalition again. They would have got into coalition on either side, wouldn't they, Lib Dems? But the Tories, I mean, it would damage. There's a lot of Reform people very angry. If you're going to hitch your horse to the Tory car ever again, we've come to you because we're angry with the Tories. But also, like with the Tories, there are an awful lot who, frankly, would be better off in the Lib Dems.
And
they'll be angry about that too.
They will, and they are angry about that. And I have spoken to a couple of people who just said that they are Conservatives and therefore they don't want that to be diluted down by adding Reform to it, equally the same way that Reform don't want to dilute down their party, and never the twain shall meet. I think that the confidence and supply that you mentioned is very similar to Theresa May's government having to have the deal with the DUP over Brexit. I can see that as a more likely scenario, but I think that should Reform win an outright majority, they're not going to want to be anywhere near the Tories.
Even down to, look, I mean, Nigel Farage feels very much, beaten and battered by the deal they did with Boris Johnson in 2019 to get Brexit through, which basically everyone goes, what an amazing, huge, big majority that Boris got. He got that because Reform, well, the Brexit parties as they were then, they stood back and just they withdrew 250 candidates, allowing that big victory. But we have got a scenario where you can have massive support for Reform, Tories and Labour are about the same, Lib Dems and Greens sort of coming up behind. I mean, Greens have polled topped.
Did very well, 17% in some polls.
I mean, that'll be fun. And cancelling each other out in a lot of these seats, and therefore letting through. There's perfectly feasible on the numbers we've got right now that Labour could win another sizable majority. So there will be a lot. There'll need to be a little bit of sort of, can you just not do much? If you know, in this seat the Tories are more likely to win, can Reform just sort of just not make much effort, and likewise in other seats. That'll happen. It
will do naturally, but I think we are also still years away from an election. So I think we all need to be a little bit careful at looking at the figures and getting carried away, because next week they'll be different. The week after that,
has Nigel Farage peaked too early? Lots of people are saying that to me this week.
I think perhaps he has, and it's interesting at this stage in the electoral cycle. A lot of pundits were saying Boris Johnson may well win a 5th term for the Tories. I think that the nightmare scenario is Reform UK, largest number of seats, Labour not far behind, Tories nowhere, Labour and the Lib Dems do a deal.
Yeah.
That's not out of the question. It's not out of the question.
I mean, it is absolutely all to play for. It's really interesting. My main thing is, however you vote, I don't tell anyone how to vote. I've voted for many different political parties in my time, is use your vote.
Yeah.
You've got to vote. I mean, goodness me.
People died for it.
This is going to be an election where absolutely every single vote is going to count. Oh, here's another question. Just before I go, I know I'm always over time because I like the conversations. I've got an MP who's had a little bit of bother in Bangladesh.
Yes.
Tulip Siddiq, and Hampstead and Highgate MP. She's my own MP.
Right.
Thrilled about that. She said, trial by media, don't know what they're talking about, no corruption, sentenced to 2 years in absentia. Her aunt, who was a Prime Minister, who basically ordered the killing of innocent, peaceful protesters who were protesting against her corruption, she's been sentenced to death. She's in India, she's not going to serve any time either. But should she still be not only having the Labour whip, but be a Labour MP or an MP at all? Because is there going to be a recall petition in her seat, or do I need to start it myself? Because I've been busy this week.
It's possible. It's very interesting to see that Labour just want this all to go away. They just say, well, this is a complicated dispute in a foreign country,
it's
but
not
actually,
really, is
well,
it?
it's not. It's the anti-corruption minister accused of corruption and being convicted in absentia. I think a lot of voters would be very, very interested in this. Tulip Siddiq had a very high moral tone in previous occasions, not so much anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So much more to come. Your calls, in particular on Putin. We're asking whether or not we should be preparing for war. It's really that simple. If Vladimir Putin says Russia is ready for war, if Europe starts the war, Russia is ready right now. Well, we aren't. So should we be? 12:30 is the time. Big thanks to Peter Cardwell. Claire Pearsall, though, is not going to be allowed out of the studio for another half hour, so she's going to stay with me. Take your calls. This is Talk.